Good afternoon. This is Rabbi Sachs coming to you from the Chai Center. Welcome to the Chai Academy. Chai Academy is classes that we try and do a few times a week on a myriad of topics, usually of Jewish interest. And each class is self-contained, encapsulated, so even if you miss a class, you can always pick up right where we left off without having to know the previous class. You can find the classes on thechaicenter.com/academy, or you can go to YouTube and put the Chai Academy, and you will find the classes there as well. There's 100 and something, 150, 170, something like that. So you have a long list to choose from, and more coming. Today's topic is Holocaust museums. So in the United States itself has over 150 Holocaust museums. In other words, different municipalities, public money, private money, have made, and some museums are obviously, some are bigger, some are smaller, and the idea is to spread awareness. Now, Dwight Eisenhower was very concerned that there'll be Holocaust revisionism, which we will talk about at some point. He was very concerned, so he made them document certain things that he made, and that way any Holocaust denier, Farrakhan, who says the Holocaust never happened, so Dwight Eisenhower. But in addition to Dwight, there are many people who kept, and as we'll talk about a couple of the main ones, who kept documents or research documents and brought forth documents, etc. And in the United States alone, there are over 150 establishments which is dedicated to preserving what happened, teaching what happened. In Long Island, we have in Glen Cove, there's in Battery Park in New York, right? But there are quite a few. In Israel, the new state of Israel, a couple of years after it was founded in 48, they founded a museum called Yad Vashem. Now, they chose the location for Yad Vashem. They chose it on Mount Herzl, very close to where Theodor Herzl, the founder, the visionary of modern-day Zionism, where he was buried. And they chose it because it was basically a middle finger to the Nazis. Theodor Herzl had a vision to make Israel a place. He didn't necessarily could care less about the geography. Herzl, he would have chosen Liberia if given, but a place where Jews can go, and so Israel was sort of a natural place of our ancestry, etc. So they did it on Mount Herzl. It's almost like you have a monument put up or a museum put up next to Lincoln. Consider that honor. So you have a history of the slave trade right next door, Lincoln Memorial. It's an impact. It's an effect. So that's where Israel placed the Holocaust Museum. First one in Israel was on Mount Herzl, and they called it Yad Vashem. Yad means hand or monument. Vashem means and a name, and it's basically based from Isaiah, where Isaiah was giving the childless couples, those couples that could not have children, he was giving them a message from God, that God said that Yad Vashem, that even though you don't have children, even though you do not have children per se, you still have a monument, and you will have a name, even if you don't have physical children. Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Israel, is probably the second busiest place in Israel. The Holocaust, the Kotel would probably be number one, but following the Kotel, the Western Wall, inappropriately called the Wailing Wall, it's the western wall of the Harabait, the mount, the Temple Mount. So Yad Vashem would be second, and it's basically I don't know if you've ever been there. I was there 30 years ago, and I was there 5 years ago, and they've changed it considerably. But one of the highlights of Yad Vashem is a floor exhibit of all the concentration camps there were. So it's a map on the floor. It's huge. And it shows that this is where Treblinka was, this is where Auschwitz was, this is where Bergen-Belsen was, this is where Dachau and Mattenhausen and on and on and on. So Yad Vashem, it has this huge, huge floor map. When I was there 30 years ago, which I did not see this time, when I was there 30 years ago, they had a mound of spectacles. Just to give you an idea of how many glasses were put in a pile, hundreds of thousands of glasses, or shoes, worn out shoes, hundreds of thousands. When I was there 5 years ago, I didn't see it. I may have missed it. And basically, Yad Vashem, for the most part, is photographic exhibits of what the Nazis did to the Jewish people. So it's large photos, and you can go through Yad Vashem quickly, or you can go through it slowly. You go through it quickly, you just look at the pictures and, like a little interest there, or you can study it, listen to the various audio-visual presentations that they have, and you'll see many, the sky's the limit. You can literally spend hours and hours and hours there. It houses also for researchers, Holocaust researchers, historians. It houses, Yad Vashem houses an extensive library with many records that researchers can actually get their hands on. It's not open to the public. The public you can go online, Yad Vashem, and see much of the research, but to hold the physical artifacts is for researchers. Outside of Yad Vashem, something very touching. It's an outside grove. There's trees, orange trees, etc. And it's called Avenue of the Righteous. It's a reminder of all the non-Jews who risked their lives to save the Jewish people. We'll talk about, we'll have a separate class on that, on Oskar Schindler, etc. Someone like him, and there are others. And more names, by the way, are coming to the surface of different people that saved. We discussed a couple of them a few weeks ago. To save Jewish people. Remember, it was punishable by death, and the fact that they were able to do it, they had the audacity to save a Jew in a time where nobody else could care less. They had the wherewithal, etc. The thing that struck me the most, and you can Google it, it's called the Hall of Names, where it's cylinder shaped, and you go into this hall, and there's little pictures of hundreds of thousands of victims of the Holocaust, people that were killed either by bullet or concentration camp, etc. And they have about 2.5 to 3 million names. They have names, they have pictures, and they also have the documents behind the names, the research that went. So they asked people, and by the way, every so often they make a push. When the Jews were able to leave USSR, they made a strong push. At some point, they were getting 3,500 reports a day. 3,500 reports a day from eyewitnesses, people who saw what happened, who either survived it, or they witnessed, they were non-Jew, and they wrote what happened. And it is all there in the Hall of Names, right? The documents that they collected, millions of pages of documents. And once again, this is so the revisionists should not have a leg to stand on, right? and you can go over and you can, there's computer terminals, and you can read these documents of people that actually sent in first-hand accounts, and they put on microfilms, microfiche, so so that way it's saved for forever, for posterity, and it can't be destroyed in a fire. They made it digital, and it's actually a place where foreign dignitaries, ambassadors or leaders and prime ministers, it's one of the mandated things that it's on their list. So they go to the Knesset, they meet the premier, the prime minister, or the president. They go to the Kotel, they go to Yad Vashem. It's on the list of where these leaders have to go because it sensitized them to Israel's plight and what happened. Correct, Lenny. Spielberg did a tremendous job of interviewing as many Holocaust survivors who didn't like talking, and he managed to get them to talk. Recently, a few days ago, the head of Mossad met with President Joe Biden, to talk to him about the Iran deal, to tell him where Israel stands, of what they have to, what's at stake for them, and a little bit of history that went into anti-Semitism, and what the Iranians would do if they had a chance. And Joe Biden actually told them we're a long way from re-signing the Iran Accords. Now, I find it interesting. It was a few years ago, there was a reunion of Holocaust survivors. I don't know if it was 20 years ago. I don't remember. I'm sure there's a lot of them, but there was this massive reunion. And they didn't meet in Yad Vashem. They did not meet in Yad Vashem. They met at the Western Wall. That the Kotel HaMaravi, that's the literal translation is Western Wall. They met there. And we'll talk more about that, because I think that speaks of volumes of what the Holocaust survivors were trying to teach. It was a teachable moment. It was a lesson. So that's Yad Vashem, and it's a must go. It's not an easy, it's not an excursion where you see the beautiful Red Sea, or the Dead Sea, or the Med, the Red, the Dead, and the Med, as one Christian once told me. No, this is not a pleasant day, but it's a must-see. You must see it. You can see the cattle cars. You can get a real understanding of the magnitude of what happened. And it's so important. It's so important. And it's also important that you and your kids know what happened. So, you'll think twice about when you see something happening to a Jew, you'll think twice about being silent. Because that's what happened, right? The world was silent. And they allowed this to happen. They allowed this to happen. As we've discussed ad nauseum, you can look at President Roosevelt, the classes on President Roosevelt, you'll see what I mean. In the United States, they have a Holocaust Museum, in Washington, D.C. So it's in a museum row, and it was founded in 1993. I think Bill Clinton was president. And to date, as of I researched it, as of January 2021, and remember this past year was closed, January 2021, it's had over 43 million visitors that have walked in and out of that museum. When it was inaugurated, so Elie Wiesel gave the keynote address. Elie Wiesel, of course, survived camp. He wrote the book on the Holocaust. He wrote Night, right, Dawn, Day. Susan passed out in the cattle car. Yeah, it's deeply, deeply troubling and emotional. So Elie Wiesel, he said something. He said a line there. He said a line, which was amazing. He said that why the Holocaust was a Jewish tragedy. It had universal implications. Very meaningful comment, because it happened to the Jews. Mostly, the 6 million Jews were targeted, exterminated, treated rough before they were exterminated, right? The but it's human implications because it's universal implications. Because what did the universe do about it, right? Are we going to sit by when the Holocaust happens to other people? Are we going to sit by? And if we do, have we learned nothing from the Holocaust? I've only been once to this Holocaust museum in Israel. They have wall to floor pictures. Right, it's like the Van Gogh exhibit, right, that I have in Manhattan. Of course, you can't compare. It's pictures, and I think this woman, I think her name was Eliach. I forget her first name. So she has a she basically wanted to capture, and she did capture a village in all its grandeur. The village of the town hall, the fields, the working environment, the fields, the houses, the so many different things, and so many different pictures, 50 different pictures, wall to ceiling, ceiling to floor, I should say, that the Nazis destroyed in 2 days. In 2 days, so this life, farmers and cows and milk and water schleppers and builders and pictures of humans and buildings and roads and infrastructure. Germans destroyed in 2 days. So it was a bustling town. It was a bustling town. And it does a very, very good job. When I was there, I don't know if they still do it. When I was there, when you came in, they give you a passport, a small little, with a name on it. Right, Lev Stradomowski. And you had this passport. And you walked through as Lev, not your name. And at the end, it told you if you survived, or if you died, how you died, what camp you were in, if applicable. It was so powerful. Right? So you're just a random guy, Lev. Right? Everybody went through pain. The question is, did they survive at the end or not? And so it gives you a little bit of history of Lev Stromowski. And it was like the wildest feeling you had when you finally knew your fate of your avatar. Just amazing. Going back to these Holocaust survivors meeting at the Kotel, at the Western Wall, as opposed to meeting at Yad Vashem, speaks volumes, as I said. And this is something that the Lubavitcher Rebbe spoke about. This is something that I speak about because I feel it intensely. Here at the Chai, I'm the rabbi here. When I have a class, give a class, or I show a movie, or I have a speaker that's about the Holocaust, I can get 300, 400 people pre-COVID to pack the room. Pack the room. If I gave a class on Maimonides, the Torah portion of the week, Jewish view of parenting, I'll get anywhere between 6 to 15. Kabbalah is a little more, and get 50. But a far cry from the 300, 400, 500 people are drawn to the Holocaust. And they come. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. However, what's even more important is not the past. It's the future. If we only dwell on the past, if we only show up to lessons of victimhood, then we've lost. Then we've lost. Because that's all we are, victims. If we show and if we come to a class about your kids, a class about kosher, a class about Israel, and we come in equal numbers, it proves we're not victims. No, we have a future. We have a proud future. So that's it's so important. It also, even more important, give you another reason. If your kids see that you're Holocaust phobic, Holocaust centric, death laser beam of your people, they're not going to want to associate, for crying out loud. They're not going to want to associate. Not going to. It's all about death and dying. It's all about morbidity. It's all about how hard we have it. You have to come for Purim. You have to celebrate Simchat Torah. You have to come for good occasions. You gotta come, bring your kid to the Chai Center for a festive occasion. So it's not all about the bad, the ugly, the morbid, the bloodshed. But it's about life, future, happiness, joy, prosperity. That's more important than anything else. You know, we have a monument here at the Chai Center. And it was a Holocaust survivor's kid, you know, generation 2, right? 2 gen, who wanted to dedicate it. And he chose the words, dedicated to our parents who perished in the Holocaust. And I told him, not happening. Not happening. I'm not putting that up. No way. I changed the words, and he accepted them. And it says, dedicated to those that perished in the Holocaust and to those that survived. It's not only about the past and the bleakness. They survived. We survived. Every person, Jewish person for sure, who survives and who continues is I'm going to say it, I'm going to be vulgar, is an FU to Hitler. Right? Every single person, every child enrolled in our Hebrew school, FU. Every child that knows they're Jewish and is proud they're Jewish, who knows that their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents survived and didn't have, but when they were, or died, and they did not have the freedoms we have now. To be Jewish is an FU to Hitler. So coming to America was not freedom it's not freedom from religion, it's freedom of religion. Celebrate it. Celebrate it. Don't shy away from it. And every time we stand under the chuppah, our kids get married. FU to Hitler. It's just, and that's why these Holocaust survivors did not want to meet in a Holocaust museum. Museums are important. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. So you gotta have it. You gotta have a museum. But that's not where your home is. You don't want your home to be a museum. This is what used to be practiced. This is what we used to do. Make your home a living testament to Judaism. A living testament to the grandparents. A living testament to the 6 million. An FU to Hitler. Whatever your motivation is, do it. Don't meet in museums. Meet at synagogues, temples, Jewish community centers. Have family reunions, class reunions, yeshiva reunions, whatever it may be. Live. Be proud. You, my friend, me, I'm not a victim. To hell with that. I'm not a victim. Did I lose many people in the Holocaust? Yeah. But I'm not a victim. My wife's whole family was lost. I'm not a victim. I'm here. I'm here to tell the tale. I'm here to say, I could care less about you, Hitler. I'm not going to dwell on your hate. I'm going to pee on your grave, Hitler, if we had one. That's my spiel. That's my story, Your Honor, and I'm going to stick to it. Be proud.